This is the best time of year to eat seaweed. It's got a crunch. It's crisp. You dry it, right? Crumble it up, and you put it on pizza. Love it.
Don't let the Italians know about that. They're still angry about pineapple, but yeah, okay, yeah.
Kelp. It's slimy, it's tangly, it's pungent, and
It's delicious.
And if you ask this guy, Michael Doall, this shimmering sea plant has a role to play in tackling two of the world's biggest challenges, climate change and a hungry planet. Mike, a former oyster farmer, is Associate Director of Shellfish Restoration at Stony Brook University's School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. These days, he's focused on kelp research. Like, really, really focused.
My favorite band, Grateful Dead, the song Help on the Way, I change it in my head all the time to Kelp on the Way.
Kelp on the way. I have a guitar in the car. We're going to have to rock on this afterwards. All right.
All right, love it.
I met up with Mike recently at the Great Gun Oyster Farm in Long Island, where he's conducting research and helping the oyster farmers to plant sugar kelp during the winter off-season.
So this is one of seven experimental kelp lines that we have in the water. This line is 100 feet, okay, from anchor to anchor, and it is it's a staked line of sugar kelp. By May, this kelp will be 12 feet long. And to grow something that big in 2 feet of water is really cool.
But before we went any further, I had to ask Mike something basic.
What is kelp?
Kelp is a type of seaweed. And the amazing thing about kelp and why it gets a lot of attention as an aquaculture crop as well as an environmental crop are just these incredible growth rates that it has.
And while it grows, kelp does some amazing things for the environment.
So just like plants on land, seaweeds do photosynthesis. And when they do photosynthesis, they're taking up the carbon dioxide out of the water and they're releasing oxygen. And, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that's accumulating in our atmosphere, causing climate change. And carbon dioxide at the same time is also accumulating in our oceans. Just like plants on land also, the seaweeds are sucking up dissolved nitrogen out of the water to grow. That's a bigger area of the research we're doing at Stony Brook University, is looking at sequestering this nitrogen, because too much nitrogen entering our bays and estuaries is the root cause of a lot of problems.
Traditionally, kelp is grown 20 to 30 feet below the ocean surface, but Mike figured out how to grow it in water that's shallow enough to stand in. That's a big deal because shallow waters suffer some of the worst nitrogen pollution problems, which can harm other crops like oysters. Kelp really does sound like a kind of miracle plant. Studies show that adding kelp to animal feeds can keep cows from burping up methane, an unexpectedly major source of greenhouse gases. And the potential uses for kelp go even further than that.
There's a lot of research going on looking at using seaweeds for biofuels, for biopackaging, creating plastics.
But the greatest thing about kelp, Mike says, is that it can do all of these things while asking almost nothing in return.
The first thing to understand about seaweeds, it's a zero input crop, okay? You don't add anything. So you don't add food, you don't add fertilizers, you don't add insecticides, no pesticides, no fresh water.
Mike's research out here on Long Island is also part of efforts to solve another global problem.
Big, bigger, biggest.
The United Nations predicts that the global population will be nearly 10 billion by 2050, and that for everyone to eat properly, we'll need to increase food production by 60%. Where's it going to come from? Experts say underwater is a great place to start. After all, oceans cover 70% of the planet, but produce just 2% of our food. Aquaculture, the organized farming of seaweed, shellfish, and finfish, can play a big role.
A lot of countries, protein's becoming a bigger component of diets in many developing countries around the world. So you're having a greater protein consumption per person and more people. And the wild fisheries just haven't been able to meet that extra demand. And that whole extra demand over the last several decades has been met through aquaculture.
And while fish farming can be resource intensive, seaweed and shellfish are sustainable crops.
So not only are we growing food, we're doing it in a way that's good for the environment, and we're doing it in a way that's sustainable, And so it's kind of the intersection between food and the environment right here,
Where would you like to see kelp farming in 10 years? What's the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal, I think kelp is a small part of a solution to some very, very, very big problems. It's not the panacea to everything. It's not going to solve all our water quality issues, but it's part of a solution.
Kelp can help.
Kelp can help. I love that, yeah. Get by with a little kelp from our friends.
I get by with a little kelp from my friends. I get high with a little kelp from my friends. Gonna try with a little kelp from my friends. I get by with a little kelp from my friends.
For GZERO World, I'm Alex Clement.